Let me start with something that might sound strange, coming from someone who now studies leadership teams in mergers and acquisitions. One of the first places I ever learned to recognize human behavior under pressure was, get this, a gym. Years ago, I was training a woman who was a senior executive, very smart, very successful, very disciplined. But one day, during a workout, something interesting happened. The workout got hard, not impossible, just uncomfortable. And in that moment, I watched something change. Her breathing shifted. Her posture collapsed slightly. Her focus moved away from the movement and toward the discomfort. And she said something I had heard many, many times before. I don't think I can do this. Now, this woman ran a company. She negotiated complex deals. She managed teams. But in that moment, the pressure of a simple workout exposed something deeper, a pattern, a response to stress. And that moment stuck with me because years later, when I began observing leadership teams during high stakes transitions, I saw the exact same patterns, just at a much bigger scale. Welcome to the Kathie Owen Perspective. This is where we talk about something that most organizations overlook: human patterns under pressure. Because when pressure enters a system, whether that's a leadership team, a merger, or a company in transition, people reveal who they really are. Not who they say they are, not who their resume says they are, but who they actually are under stress. And that matters more than anything else. Most people assume I learned to recognize these patterns inside boardrooms, but that's not where it started. It started in a gym. I began personal training in the year 2000. And over the last 26 years, I've trained hundreds of people, mostly women, executives, entrepreneurs, professionals, people who carried a lot of responsibility. And when you train people consistently for years, something interesting happens. You begin to see patterns, not just in bodies, but in behavior. The gym is one of the most honest environments you will ever see because pressure appears immediately. A workout gets difficult, fatigue shows up, and suddenly people reveal things about themselves. Some people step forward, some people step back, some people get curious, and some people avoid discomfort. Some people rush too hard and burn out, and some people quietly show up every day and do the work. You start noticing something very quickly: what people say they want and what their behavior reveals. Those are often two completely different things. And when you see this for years, you begin to develop something very powerful: pattern recognition. I remember training a woman one time. It was one of our first sessions, and she told me she'd never really lifted weights before. But as soon as she started moving, I noticed something: the way she held the weights, the way her shoulders moved, the way her body stabilized naturally. There was familiarity there. So I asked her a question: did you play sports when you were younger? She looked surprised. Yes, she said, I played softball. And then she asked the question I hear all the time: how did you know? And I told her something simple: I can tell by the way you move. Muscle memory leaves patterns. The body remembers things long after the mind forgets them. And once you see patterns, you start seeing them everywhere. At one point in my career, I was hired by a founder to train his wife. She was the CEO of their company. Over time, the relationship grew, and eventually they asked me to run the gym inside their corporate office. I completely redesigned that gym: turf, rubber flooring, functional fitness training equipment, graphics on the wall. It became a space people actually wanted to spend time in. But the most interesting part wasn't the gym itself. It was what I started seeing inside of it. Because now I wasn't just observing individuals, I was observing an entire organization. Executives came through that gym, managers came through, team members came through, and something fascinating began to appear: the way people approached their workouts. It looked very similar to the way they approached their work. Some people avoided challenge. Some people pushed too hard and burned out. Some were consistent and disciplined. Others relied on motivation and disappeared when it faded. The gym became a window into the company, and the patterns were everywhere. That's when something clicked for me. I wasn't just training bodies, I was reading systems. Bodies are systems, teams are systems, organizations are systems, and pressure reveals the patterns inside those systems. Fast forward to today. Much of my work now involves studying leadership dynamics during high pressure moments, growth, transitions, mergers, acquisitions, and here's something that almost no one talks about. Financial diligence studies numbers. Operational diligence studies processes. But very few people study the human patterns holding everything together. And those patterns often determine whether value holds or value erodes. Because when pressure increases, behavior changes. Leaders reveal identity attachment. Teams reveal loyalty structures. Conflict patterns become visible. And suddenly, the numbers on the spreadsheet start behaving very differently than expected. Looking back, the path makes perfect sense. My consulting career didn't begin when I started working with leadership teams. It began the moment I started watching patterns in breathing, in posture, in consistency, in stress responses. The gym was simply my first laboratory. Today, that laboratory is leadership teams and organizations, but the skill is the same: pattern recognition under pressure. If this perspective is interesting to you, I wrote a full article that goes deeper into this story and the work I do today. There's a link to the blog post that accompanies this episode in the show notes and description below. It also includes bonus resources and more information about working with me. And if you work in mergers and acquisitions, leadership, or high pressure environments, hello, who doesn't? You'll probably recognize many of the patterns we talked about today, because pressure never creates patterns. Pressure reveals them. This has been the Kathie Owen Perspective. I trust that you found it helpful, and if you know someone who could benefit from this, please share it with them, and I'll see you in the next episode.